It is being recorded. I've got the thumbs up. That means we're ready to go. Okay, first of all, I must apologise for wearing prescription sunglasses. In my haste to get here, I left my ordinary ones at home. So with that proviso, we'll get underway. Thank you to everyone for attending the hybrid meeting for the Chorley Council on Tuesday, the 29th of September 2020. We have some members present in the Lancastrian room, some joining from home, and members of the public are welcome to observe from Committee Room 1, where the meeting is being streamed. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Councillor Steve Holgate and I am the Mayor of Chorley. Just to my left and behind me is Councillor Julia Berrier and she is the Deputy Mayor. So if I fall off my chair, she'll be taking over. Please note that this is a Teams meeting. It is being recorded and the stream will be available later on YouTube. For each item, I will invite members to use the raise hands function on your iPad to make any comments to ensure each member has the opportunity to speak and that they are not speaking over each other. The raise hand function is now along at the bottom of your screen at the time. When speaking, please reference the paragraph number to enable everyone to follow you. Please mute your microphone and video feed when you're not speaking. If the technology fails at any time, then I will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes and try and resolve the issue, or if it is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Please can I ask members to confirm that they can hear and speak before the meeting begins. I will do this with a roll call of each member. Councillor Julia Berry.
Present.
Councillor Aaron Beavers.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Marty Boardman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Alistair Bradley.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Terry Brown.
Present.
Councillor Mark Clifford.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jean Cronshaw. Councillor John Dalton. Councillor John Dalton.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, yes. Councillor John Dalton.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Graham Dunn.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Christopher Franz.
Here.
Councillor Gordon Franz.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Margaret Franz.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Peter Gabbett.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Anthony G.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Danny G.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tommy Gray.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Yvonne Hargreaves.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Alex Hilton.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Keith Hidden. Councillor Keith Hidden. Keith, are you on mute? We'll come back to Keith. Councillor Husina Khan.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Zara Khan.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Margaret Lees.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Roy Lees.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Laura Lennox.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sheila Long.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Adrian Lowe.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Marion Lowe.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Matthew Lynch.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor June Molyneux.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Alistair Morwood.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Steve Murphy.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Beverly Murray.
Yes.
Councillor Deborah Platt.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gillian Sharple.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Paul Sloan.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Joyce Snape. Councillor Kim Snape.
Present.
Councillor John Walker.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Paul Walmsley,
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Neville Whittam,
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Alan Whittaker,
Present.
and Councillor Peter Wilson.
Present.
We have apologies from Councillor Valerie Cons, who I believe has fallen. Perhaps it would be nice if we were to wish her well and send her a card. Is that agreed?
Yep.
Okay, we'll do that.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yeah.
just double check? There are 2 mobile numbers on the call, one of which may be Councillor Keith Hidden. But if those 2 could just identify themselves, because we will be moving into private session later, so we need to know whether you're a councillor or not. Is that possible?
I'm sure it is. I'm not sure how I'm going to get them to identify themselves, but if they could identify themselves to you, that would be really
I'm on a
useful.
mobile number outside, or is it? No, or maybe you rang me, didn't you? So does that count? This is David Harrison.
Hiya, yeah, it's Mr. Harrison. Yeah, no, sorry, yours is one of the numbers. I just wondered if the other one was Councillor Keith Hidden.
I've got you. Right, so you know where I am anyway.
We know where you are.
We're
yes.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Panic ye not. Right. Okay. With that roll call and just the mystery presence of Councillor Eden, we will move on to apologies for absence, which we've got already. Item 1, the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 21st of July, 2020 of the Council. Decisions from the 14th of August to the 4th of September. Pages 5 to 16 on your agenda papers. It's for accuracy of noting and a proposal by Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I propose that the minutes of that meeting held in July and the decisions from August are noted as a true and correct record? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Councillor Peter Wilson, would you like to second that?
Seconded.
That's seconded. Right. Are there any issues to be raised by anybody about the accuracy of the minutes? Yes, Councillor John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a question I'd like to put to the leader about a part of the agenda for the last September meeting, if that's with your permission.
Is it about its accuracy?
No. It's the question I'd like to ask him.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, the question to the leader is the government recently published a white paper on the future of local government. Can the leader state if there has been any further communication with other leaders of Lancashire councils on the findings of the white paper? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, they haven't fully released any papers. We're still awaiting further updates from government about exactly what is going to be in the final documents that the governments are going to bring forward. On that basis, we have had conversations with other leaders. We constantly have conversations with other leaders, and as I highlighted at the previous meeting, there is a range of views across Lancashire as to what people can see or want to see, if you like, in the future of the county. We continue to meet, certainly as district leaders. We don't meet as Lancashire leaders at the moment because the meetings are not being convened by County Council, which I think is regrettable. And I would like to see those meetings reinstated as soon as possible. But we are waiting for further direction from both the government and locally from constituent authorities as to what they want to see in the future. We're quite clear here in Chorley that we would like, currently, if there is going to be a reorganisation of Lancashire, to work with our colleagues at South Ribble, who are working with very closely, and to a lesser extent West Lancs, who we are also doing joint working with, as opposed to the proposal put forward by the County Council. But I think what there needs to be is a proper conversation, and at a time when COVID is rearing its head again, I think we need to be focused on dealing with the impacts of that, as opposed to looking at local government reorganisation anytime soon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Are you okay with that, John?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bradley.
Councillor Boardman, I believe, wishes to make a comment. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just taking myself off mute. It's just in relation to accuracy with regards to one of the paragraphs. Paragraph 31 on page 19. I'm just going to refer back to it if that's okay. This is regarding the Tatton procurement. Paragraph 31 states basically the council and the project team are looking to appoint a two-stage process now for procurement, that being of an open book process in order to generate a fixed price. The question is to Councillor Bradley knowing those two processes, they are two very different procurement processes, either a fixed price process or an open book process. So I just wondered if you can just clarify which one it is and if one is going to lead to another.
I'll be happy to clarify when I understand that. I've not picked that out previously, Councillor Boardman, but I will work to do that. From what I recollect, and I will go from recollection only, we did look for a two-stage procurement that was to develop a stage 4 design and then look to get a guaranteed price as opposed to a fixed price, which again you'll realise is very different. And it was to be done through a framework that does allow a certain level of open book development, but that was at certain stages of the design process. So I will go away and get officers to clarify that, because I think I'm as confused as you are by that sentence, and I think it's just been transposed incorrectly. So thank you for the question, Councillor Boardman. We'll get back to you.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Boardman?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bradley, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is there anything else with regards to the accuracy of these minutes? Yes. Oh, Councillor Whitaker.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. With regard to reorganisation of local government and Councillor Walker's response and Councillor Bradley's response, my view is that none of the proposals that have been floated will do anything to improve the experience of local government for people of Chorley. End of story. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Not technically a matter of accuracy, but one of an opinion, but nonetheless a valid intervention. Okay, is there anyone else with regards to the accuracy of these minutes? If there's not, then I will take it that we are in favour of the proposal, which is to note the minutes of the last meeting, and move on to item 2, which is the declarations of any interests. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interests in respect of matters contained in this agenda. As this is a virtual meeting, if a member has a pecuniary interest, they are requested to leave the call completely rather than just mute their microphone on that particular item. The members can rejoin the call following the completion of the item in question. Has anyone got any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests? I will take the silence as no. Moving on swiftly to item 3, which are mayoral announcements. Firstly, I would like to thank all the staff involved in helping me to function as mayor under the most demanding of circumstances. And secondly, I would like to share my thoughts on 3 areas of my activities over the past few months that I believe have been of a groundbreaking and successful nature. Namely, firstly, the town centre chats. I've been going around on a Tuesday on market day, talking to shoppers, talking to traders and talking to market traders and shopkeepers and cafe owners. And it has to be said that I've been met, perhaps not me personally, but the mayoral position has been met with great enthusiasm, respect, kindness, and a stoic and positive attitude by everyone that I've spoken to. And it's been a delight meeting so many people going about their daily business. Secondly, another matter that I've been involved with is the meeting of many of the faith organisations across the borough, every faith organisation just about. And it has to be said that irrespective of which faith or any faith whatsoever, these organisations have stepped up to the mark and not only looked after their own church community, but the community of Chorley as a whole. And I'd just like to say how impressed I am with the work that they've been doing on behalf of everybody. There's another thing that I've been doing, which is organising and sorting out a Facebook page, and that's been done with the help of comms, and their help cannot be underestimated. It's a new and novel thing. It's something that I thought would perhaps enable the mayoralty under these strange circumstances to meet and touch the lives of more people than perhaps would not ordinarily be the case. And I have to say that I insisted that it was a two-way conversation on Facebook, not just a means by which you could make mayoral announcements in another forum. And with the exception of two particular comments to posts, it's been a very responsive and positive approach by everybody in Chorley. I've only had to delete two naughty comments coming back, one of which was inappropriate and one was just plain abusive. So I would like to think that that's something that perhaps in the future could be worked on going forward. Finally, I'd like to mention the Moonlight and Memories Walk, which I did in aid of St. Catherine's Hospice. I'd like to thank everyone who made a donation in support of the Moonlight and Memories Walk. I completed this with my mayoress, Emma, my daughter, and 5 of her children, and it was a bit like herding cats, but it was a wonderful experience, and that was done at the beginning of the month. I'd like to thank everyone for the generosity, councillors and local people alike. We've raised £750 so far for St. Catherine's Hospice through a My Just Giving page, which can be found on the Mayor of Chorley Facebook page. If anybody's not managed to get round to donating yet, that will be open for a few days longer. So that's the end of my mayoral announcements. Item 4 is public questions. Members of the public who have requested the opportunity to ask questions on any items on the agenda will have 3 minutes to put their questions to the relevant council member. Members of the public will be allowed to ask one short supplementary question, and one question has been received by Mr. David Harrison. David, are we okay for David to come in now and ask his question? Right, David, it's up to you, David. Away you go.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I can. Can everyone else hear him? Yes, we can.
That's great. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. I know, I mean, as everybody does, we're in an awful situation with the pandemic. However, I think it's really important that the council remembers and acts on the climate emergency that it declared in November 2019. So what I wanted to ask was, are we making progress despite the pandemic? And I mean, following the declaration in November 2019, have we got, as a council, the financial and policy measures in place to reduce carbon emissions from the borough so that the net zero target of 2030 will be achieved? And as part of that, has financial provision been made for air quality monitoring arrangements, including for particulates, the PM2.5s, which are extremely important during the pandemic? Private monitoring, and I know there's no council monitoring at the moment, but private monitoring by Mark Tebbett has showed very high levels in the borough associated with log burners. And for example, residents in Brighton have been advised not to use log burners during the pandemic. So, I mean, I'm asking, have these things been considered by the council? And the third part of my question is regarding the motorway speed limits. we have in Chorley high levels of nitrogen oxide because of the transport network. The government is reducing the speed limit in certain areas to 60 miles an hour on motorways. Has the council, or could the council press the government to extend that speed limit restriction to include the M6 and M61? So basically, my questions are to do with the pandemic not derailing the climate emergency. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Harrison. I believe that the Leader of the Council is happy to respond to those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if that's the Mr. Harrison from Astley Village, I think it is, who's involved in the Green Party and has stood for election alongside ourselves previously. He probably knows more about some of these subjects than myself. Is that yourself, David? Yeah, is it yourself who's asking the question?
I am a member of the Green Party. I used to be chair, but younger, more enthusiastic and more capable people have taken over the party, which
we're all like that.
It was remiss of Councillor Bradley to bring in a conversation. Just answer the question.
We're all in danger of being replaced by younger and more enthusiastic people, but let's let that lie, Mr. Mayor. Yes, following the adoption of a climate emergency last year, as you point out, we aren't being derailed by the pandemic. We are trying to stay focused on what we put in place at that time. And as a result, the council did put aside £500,000 budget from February this year to support the work that we are looking to do by 2030 to get us to a net zero position. It is a large challenge. We recognise the size of that challenge. The council can't do it on its own. We have to work with partners and with our communities to do that. But we have started the work, and that will be reinforced at our November meeting, which sets the strategy for the council for the next 1 year and 3 years and longer. And we will reinforce some of that. So some of I'll try and get a more detailed report to you, Mr. Harrison, and copy to all councils of what we're doing currently. But some of the key aims we've got, for example, planting a tree for every resident in the borough, looking to develop a programme to support home energy efficiency, which is a major contributor to carbon usage, using the Central Lancashire local plan that we're currently developing with our neighbouring authorities in South Ribble and Preston to develop more sustainable transport means, also better developments that again will be more carbon efficient, and also to improve biodiversity also as a byproduct of that. We're also, as part of that funding, look to recruit staff to implement some of these policies because they haven't been here within our organisation, and we're actually looking to share some of that work with South Ribble as well, so we can work across a larger footprint. And we are looking to improve air quality across the borough, which I'll come to in a moment. And like I said, that will be reinforced at the strategy meeting in November. The Mayor is a very keen environmentalist. We have an environmental champion, Councillor Mark Clifford, and many councillors are, if you like, holding us to account and making sure our administration looks to deliver on the promise we made around the climate emergency. And all parties, I think, in the council support that aim of moving towards 2030. With particular regard to air quality monitoring in the borough, we do actually undertake some air quality monitoring currently. It's very low level at the moment, and it is developing, and it will be changing in the coming years, because what we're trying to do is, number one, is benchmark where we're at, because that's important. And you'll be aware that different monitoring is taking place in different places through different methods. There are different ways of doing it, and we're trying to work with particularly the Lancashire County Council and colleagues at the Transport Authority, because a lot of the work around air quality comes from transport and the effects of traffic, particularly diesel traffic, on a lot of our busy roads. And Councillor Margaret France is led on this, and is again holding us to account internally as to what we should be doing to develop that air monitoring policy. So again, that we will develop that further. We're also putting funding into doing more air quality testing, and that will be something that we will publish. We do currently publish what we do on the website. We'll be doing far more of that in the future. And again, I'll send you a link onto that. The third part of your question, Mr. Harrison, regarding motorways, Obviously, the decision around speed limits doesn't rest with this council or even county council. It rests with Highways England and the central government. And there is a lot of debate, as you've referred to, about whether lowering speed limits does have an impact, particularly on the M61 because of the topography around the M61 as it goes past Chorley through Botany. The air tends to stay in the bottom there, and therefore pollution is increased because of it. There are a number of trials going on around the country and around the northwest, and we are watching the outcome of that very closely. And on the back of that, we'll probably be pushing the government along to develop a proposal for Lancashire as soon as possible. Obviously, funding is a major issue. I think one of the things I've seen recently is around smart motorway extension on the M6 to press it north from Warrington up into Lancashire. And one of the byproducts of smart motorways is, and I've seen this myself on the M1 over in the East Midlands, is that they can actually bring in short-term traffic restrictions to deal with localised air pollution. So by lowering the speed of the motorway temporarily, that can deal with localised air pollution at certain points and at certain weather conditions. So I think there's a number of things there that I can expand on further in papers, but I welcome the questions and I hope that reassures you that this council is going above and beyond what many others are doing, even at the times that we're currently living in.
Good, is it me now?
Somebody
Hello?
muted me. So hello, no, that's
Oh, right.
somebody remotely muted me. I don't know what they were trying to say, but I'm talking too much.
Okay.
Right, my understanding is that you have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question if you so wish.
Okay, well, I'd like just to thank you for that very, very useful and very detailed and very positive response. But I would say just two things. One, the council's own data in the 2020 Air Quality Annual Status Report points out that the mortality burden of PM2.5 on the under 75s figures show that Chorley is the second highest in Lancashire after Burnley. Now, this pandemic isn't going to go away, and anything that exacerbates the effects of COVID on our population has to be really, really taken seriously. So I would urge you to consider at least an advisory, some advice to residents not to use log burners during the pandemic because they do produce high spikes of PM2.5. So that was one thing. The second thing, it's all very well the UK government saying it's going to have a little bit of a experiment on reducing the speed limit. But research elsewhere, and particularly in Europe, shows that major effect, a small 10 mile an hour reduction in speed limit reduces fuel consumption by a very significant amount, 12 to 18%. And more importantly, from a health point of view, not just from a climate change point of view, but from a health point of view, reduces particularly particulate from diesels and NOx emissions by a significant amount. And we shouldn't be sitting here waiting for what we think might be blue sky information coming back. We should be pushing the government to act on behalf of our residents. But thank you very much for your excellent reply, and I look forward to getting it in writing. Cheers.
Okay. Alistair, would you like to come back again or not? Okay. Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. If you wish to continue listening to the rest of the meeting, you're most welcome to do so up until part 2. Otherwise, you can log off if you so wish.
Okay.
That's the end of the public questions. Item 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. My pleasure. Move on to item 5, which is in your agenda papers, page 17 to 21. and that is to consider a general report of the Executive Cabinet held on the 30th of July. This item is for noting. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I propose that the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of July are taken as a true and correct record? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to second?
Indeed, I do. Seconded,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Right. Right. So I now invite members to make comment or ask questions on this particular report. If you would like to do so, please raise your hand in the virtual Teams function. I am not being informed of anyone wishing to comment. So, Councillor Boardman. Can't spoil the duck. Councillor Boardman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a question really in to Councillor Bradley or Councillor Wilson. It might be better at Councillor Wilson actually. Paragraph 26, page 26, paragraph 38 refers to the Strawberry Fields development, and it was putting a position in place as of March with regards to lettings. The statement at the bottom says that there is a £147,000 adjustment. Could Councillor Wilson just clarify if that £147,000 is a...
Councillor Boardman,
sorry,
can I just interrupt you a moment? You're a bit ahead of us, really. It's usually me that's ahead of the curve, but you are on this occasion. It's the next agenda item, so do you want to save it for that one?
I apologise, Councillor Mayor, and I'll save it, but I've now given them some fodder.
No, that's absolutely fine. Right, we'll go back to item 5. Do we have anybody else wishing to make comment or ask questions on this item? Sorry, it's item 4, isn't it? No. You got me mixed up now, Councillor Borden. No,
sorry, you're on item 5.
Item 5. I was right after all. Right. So I have had nobody indicating they wish to speak on this item other than Councillor Boardman, who was on the wrong one. Therefore, can we agree that it is noted, please? Anyone wishing to not note it, speak now. There is no one, so that is taken as noted. Right, Councillor Bradley. No, Councillor Wilson, do you want to introduce item 6, provisional revenue and capital outturn 2019-20?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I at least know what one question is coming now, don't I? Members will be aware. I think Councillor Bourne will think up another now just to try and throw me. Members will be, having seen the report, will note that there is a underspend of £466,000. That is detailed on table 1, page 24, paragraph 26 at the top there. You can see where that breaks down. And if we look at just a couple of those items, Mr. Mayor, obviously one of the key elements is staffing as usual, but we've also had the issues of bad debt provision, which I'll come on to in a second. We've also had some additional income perhaps that we hadn't originally forecast. So that explains the sorry, when I say we haven't forecast that's come on stream this year. So that explains the 466,000. What's worth noting for members is the fact that a lot of discussion has been around COVID and the impact that that's going to have on the council, and the report makes it clear that to date, as we sit here at the moment, the impact of COVID hasn't been so significant in terms of the financial impact, but what's to come may well be. So in other words, the biggest issue we've got around is the loss of income, and that mainly comes in the form of business rates as businesses struggle, and in the form of council tax as people struggle to pay the council tax. You've then got other potential increases, such as increases in demand on homelessness and the other council services that obviously kick in as a consequence of people struggling even more. So that is a fluid situation, Mr. Mayor. We make our best estimate of the impact that will have on the council, but that's something that a number of members have raised with me in the last month, so I just wanted to mention that in addition to outlining the overall financial position for the year. In terms of our balances stay at £4 million. We also have other balances, members will recall from the budget, which amount to a similar figure, but that's specific areas such as the business rates retention scheme or money we set aside for our asset management, such as Market Walk or the TVS logistics as well. So there are reasons to say that financially we are still making a very cautious approach to given the circumstances that we face. At the same time, this allows us to continue with our main investments, some of which are highlighted in the report. So, Mr. Mayor, to return to the recommendations, with the underspends that I've mentioned, we make a number of recommendations, primarily that we have £63,000 that moves to finance one-off redundancy and pension strain costs, which are as a consequence of the transformation and shared service strategies, that we have £100,000 to fund future planning appeals. We know that there's a number of contentious issues, no more so than Pear Tree Lane in recent times. That obviously is council to seek to challenge those decisions or to defend decisions, depending on which way they go. And of course, that costs money, so we need the money there for future. This issue is not going to go away. We also want £100,000 for the operations centre for CCTV. We've seen improvements to our network, but that needs to be matched with investment into the operations centre. And then finally, we want just over £200,000 to go to the business rates retention scheme. Again, you'll note from the reports we've made a number of contributions to the retention scheme. Now that sits at somewhere in the region of £1 million, and that is with good reason, Mr. Mayor, because the future is extremely uncertain. We still await the government's review of how business rates is to be given to local authorities and how the scheme is to work in the future. But given the current circumstances, the recession that we're in, again, we think a health reserve there is the right approach. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I make the recommendations to council as outlined in paragraphs 4 to 12.
Right, before I bring Councillor Boardman back in, Councillor Bradley, you need to second this.
Happy to second that report, Mr. Mayor.
Right, Councillor Boardman, have you anything to add to what you said earlier, or had you made your point?
No, I hadn't finished the question, actually. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Carry on then.
Finish it if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'll defer back to it. It's page 26, paragraph 38, Strawberry Fields development. As of the paragraph, it was stating a status around March this year and a figure of £147,000 adjustment. Could Councillor Wilson just clarify if that £147,000 is a loss against the targeted budget, and also what the current status is with Strawberry Fields development and the level of occupancy, if that's okay?
Councillor Wilson.
The 147, you're absolutely right, Councillor Boardman, that variance is less, as it were, not more. In terms of the occupancy, Councillor Bradley might be more better positioned to give you an answer on that in specific terms. If he can't or I can't, then we will email you with the latest position, I am sure.
Councillor Bradley.
It's more or less the same as what it says in that report, Councillor Boardman. We had a slight loss of some of the temporary or part, that's what I'm looking for, hot desk effectively areas where people come and go in short transit areas, because as you imagine they book it by the day, week or month, and therefore we suffered a loss of that kind of occupier. But all the big occupiers who were letting space, I think, are still in place. I will write and let you know if it's different than that, but there isn't any significant. Just for information, the slippage that we did, we gave people, because effectively that many people were working from home, it wasn't really worth maintaining our staff in there, because we were staffing, cleaning and all the rest of it for very few people. So we closed the building for a period with the agreement of those people letting the premises from us, and as a result we effectively gave them a rental holiday because we weren't providing any accommodation to them. What we've also done, Councillor Boardman, on the back of that is, as part of the restrictions that were tied to the Digital Office Park around its funding, as you'll remember or recollect, it was quite strict as to what kind of businesses were allowed to go into there. as a result of the experience we've been through and what's happening nationally with COVID, we've approached the funding authorities to see if that can be relaxed slightly, which is actually meaning that we can attract more businesses in now as we're reopening to take up more space. So I'm more hopeful now, because some of the restrictions have been taken off us, that we'll fill the residual space quicker than we probably would have done previously. But again, that's a developing story. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so a digital hub for a digital mayor. Is there anyone else wishing to ask questions or raise issues? Yes, Councillor Walker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask a question about the digital part, but Councillor Bradley's answered my question. I'll refer to paragraph 62, the Tatton development. The council has allocated 14 million for this project and recently appointed 2 companies to oversee the early procurement and preparation work. However, should not the council, with all the financial problems associated with COVID-19 as yet unknown, put the start of the construction of this project on hold until the new financial year, when hopefully the council's financial position will be in a better position?
Is that Councillor Wilson? Councillor Bradley want to answer that. Councillor Wilson, since you're the portfolio holder.
Yeah, happy to answer that. I don't think we should pause it, Mr. Mayor, and I think there's 2 or 3 reasons why. The first is, obviously we are now a significant way down the track in terms of getting this scheme delivered, and this is, let's not really forget, this is a significant investment in that area of Chorley and East Ward of Chorley, and it will bring facilities which have been lacking in that area for many years. Residents have been in need of excellent first-class health services, a good GP surgery, a community centre which has provided superb events and services, but is way beyond its sell-by date and needs to be renovated and improved. And then an extra care facility like we've seen our first efforts on that at Primrose, which is extremely popular, and the demand is rising. So do I think we need to pause that scheme? No, I don't. In fact, in the light of COVID and all the problems that may be associated with it, I think it's more important we have excellent healthcare. It's more important we have excellent housing for those who need it, and it's more important we have excellent community facilities. In addition to that, Mr. Mayor, we have obviously got other partners involved in this, and that's also important that the timing is ripe, and it needs to be delivered as quickly as we can.
Okay. Councillor Bradley, do you want to add to that?
Just to add to that, and obviously we've got government money coming into that scheme as well, which will have a finite delivery period on it. So if we pause it, we may lose some of that government money that we've been so successful in achieving and bringing into the area. So I don't want to really lose that money, and what Peter said.
All right, Councillor Walker, do you want to come back before I invite anyone else?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Last chance saloon for anyone else. Please indicate that you wish to speak or ask a question. Sorry. Councillor Hasina Khan wishes to either make a comment or a question. Okay, Hasina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councillors. I just wanted to add that this scheme for the health for Chorley East, this health centre has been promised them for years, well before I was a councillor. And if anything happens, you're going to lose trust in the council and the councillors, but it's a much needed service, and I think we need to get cracking on this. There's no point of return now.
Right. Okay. Anybody else? If not, then these proposals are for agreement, I believe. Just let me find my page. Yes, they are to be approved, and therefore, given this is the end of the debate, I'm not going to ask that the recommendations be read out because they are on your paper. Is everybody clear about what they're voting on here? If anybody isn't, speak now, and I will have it read out. No, I thought not. Okay. Anyone opposed to this proposal, please show. I take it that is nobody, and therefore I will assume that everybody is happy with it and it is approved. Okay. Moving on to page Governance Committee, item 7. This is on your pages 55 to 58. It is to be proposed by Councillor Platt and seconded by Councillor Tony G. Deborah, do you wish to propose this or speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have pleasure in proposing these minutes to the council for
Right, they are,
noting.
they are for noting. Yeah. Tony?
Yeah, and I'm pleasure seconding them.
Right. Is there anyone wish to speak on these before we note them? No, it would seem not. Can we take it that they are noted? That's agreed. Okay. Item 8 is a General Purposes Committee, and they are on pages 59 to 60. They are to be proposed by Councillor Aaron Beaver and seconded by Councillor Gordon France. Aaron? I can't hear you on the mic. I can only hear you. I think you're still muted.
Is that better?
That's good. Go.
I pressed the wrong one. I would like to recommend that the minutes of the General Purpose Committee be held as a true and accurate record from last week.
Right. Okay, Councillor France. Gordon.
I would like to second that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Right. Okay. We will go on to ask if there are any questions or queries or comments. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a comment and a question. The decision by the preferred bidder to withdraw from taking over our leisure centres was a devastating blow to the council. And on behalf of our group, I'd like to thank the exec member, directors and officers for the time and hard work that they have given to getting the leisure contract almost to completion. They must be very disappointed with the outcome. Over the past 2 years, the ONS committee has spent time looking at details of the contract and will further look at the implications of the decision at our meeting on Thursday. Can I say exec member if there will be discussions in the near future with the applicants that came second in the bidding with a view to taking on the contract?
Right. I think that's one for you, Councillor Murray.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Councillor Walker. You are quite right to say thanks to the council officers that have been involved in this, and also bizarrely, we should really point out and say thank you to Life Leisure, who not only were honest with us and said they couldn't take over the contract, but have also provided some advice around being COVID secure and what equipment, etc., we might want to put in the leisure centres. We are currently moving staff over and looking at moving some equipment in, but we are meeting with the second bidder to see what they have to offer, but it may mean that we have to go through the whole sort of process again if what they put in is significantly different this time with their offer they come in with.
Okay, are you happy with that response?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Murray. Thank you.
Right, are there anybody else wish to add comments or ask questions on this particular item? Well, this particular report, not this issue. If not, the report is for noting. If anyone disagrees that it should not be noted, please speak. Silence will indicate that everyone's in favour of it being noted. Right, that's taken as noted. Item 9, council appointments. I nearly said anointments there, that was Freudian. None have been, there's no changes required according to this, so we will move on to item 10. Questions asked under Council Procedure Rule 8, if any. There have been no questions asked under that rule. Item 11 is to consider the notice of motion, if any, given in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 10. And they are to follow. I think that's pages 63 and 64, it says there. I have accepted this is an urgent item of notice of motion, and Councillor Wilson will speak to it and propose it. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please ignore the phone going off in the background. It'll stop in a moment. Yes, thank you,
Better
Mr.
than
Mayor.
seagulls we heard last week.
Absolutely. I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for first of all taking this as an urgent item. I think the future of our accidents and emergency department at the hospital is something that all members are very concerned about, as are a significant number of our residents here in Chorley Borough. So again, I do appreciate the fact that you've facilitated this, Mr. Mayor, because it is a crucial time really for our A&E services. I don't intend to read the motion. Obviously, members have seen it. It's quite short and sweet, but the council previously had made it very clear that our position was we believe we need a A&E department at Chorley Hospital, and that the residents of our borough deserve the services that they provide. Clearly, as a consequence of COVID, we saw the hospital trust close the 12-hour A&E service at Chorley and South Ribble Hospital back in March. This was something that we were concerned about at the time. We have since been pushing for its reopening as soon as possible. We were told in May that this was now going to be worked up to reopen. The Secretary of State for Health announced in the House of Commons in May that again this would happen. He has been asked a number of times in Parliament about this. He has continued to reaffirm his commitment to make sure this department reopens. We were all under the impression this was going to happen. We were all told that recruitment was taking place. We were given a date of the 28th of September as the date that the trust were aiming to open the A&E by, and then lo and behold, at the end of last week, we were suddenly told this can't be done because the staffing levels aren't high enough in order to open the A&E. I find it particularly disturbing, Mr. Mayor, that we only found out a week before the date for reopening that the staffing levels weren't going to be sufficient. I think the trust must have known that sometime before, and therefore it's surprising that ministers were making the statements they were making. As the motion indicates, this has got support from the 3 local MPs. It is not a party political issue in any sense, shape or form. It is about our A&E and the ability of the trust, who have twice closed the A&E department now, Mr. Mayor. It is the question is their ability to get it reopened, and we are now saying that we're supporting the efforts being made by our 3 local MPs to persuade ministers and the senior officials within the NHS to do everything they can to make sure that we get our A&E back open as soon as possible. And therefore, Mr. Mayor, I propose the motion in front of members.
Okay. Councillor Bradley, are you seconding this?
Happy, or actually very unhappy to second this, Mr. Mayor, because yet again here we are like Groundhog Day having the same conversation whereby the A&E at Chorley is shut as an emergency measure. The one at Preston that shut as an emergency measure, the one at Chorley that shut as an emergency measure. The trust then undertake with the government to reopen it, and then they fail, as Councillor Wilson mentioned spectacularly at the final hurdle. It shouldn't have been a surprise last week when we got the notification through. It was just a disappointment that here we are again, and therefore, Mr. Mayor, here we are again calling on the government through the Department of Health, but also our local hospital trust to get their finger out and get the A&E reopened, not least because we're entering a period where it's going to be needed even more than ever. And therefore, Mr. Mayor, I am really need, we need to support this with all our energies and to make it very apparent that yet again, Chorley will not be shortchanged by health providers as we so constantly have been in the past. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So that's a proposal and a seconder. Anyone wishing to make a point? Councillor Walker, I can see in the room, having indicated. I would expect a few on this. Carry on, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, our group supports the motion. We're delighted all MPs from around this area are dealing with it in Parliament. Can I ask Councillor Bradley what his thoughts are about getting they're saying that the next deadline is December the 3rd or 4th, which is only 2 months away. Are you confident this will happen, or are you feeling depressed about the chances of it being open in December?
Probably depressed, if I'm honest, Councillor Walker. But the key is getting it done quickly, because, as we all know, the closer you get to the end of the year and Christmas, it's very hard to do anything around that time, because no matter what COVID's doing, you've also got all the implications of Christmas and holidays and staff transferring at that point, etc. This was an ideal opportunity to do it through the summer. A process was entered into. Lots of local people, including MPs, including the youth zones, including prominent local people, supported the trust in trying to convince people that Chorley was a great place to work and live, which we all know it is. And other parts of Lancashire can staff up. Why can't we? Again, it should have been done by now, because this has been the best time to do it. I suspect we're now in the period where it's going to be harder to do that, but nobody's created this problem apart from, to me, Chorley Teaching Hospital, Central Lancashire Teaching Hospital Trust, and by extension the government and government agencies who should have been ensuring that they did this. And therefore, I suspect the minister's as disappointed as we are this has happened, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? No. Councillor Margaret France, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add a few comments, having just this evening attended an upgrade from Mr. Ibrahim Adia, who is the Chief Exec of the Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust. And it was in relation to the comments about staffing. As you will know, the Trust Board had a meeting last week when the decision was made that there weren't enough staff to be able to safely reopen at the end of September. At the current time, all the nursing staff posts have been recruited, and they're quite a considerable number, because the hospital's not going back to its previous situation with the ED department. It's had to be divided into both COVID and non-COVID areas. So the pre-existing staffing levels are nowhere near sufficient to cope with what is currently going to be 4 emergency departments, 2 at Chorley and 2 at Preston. The healthcare assistant posts have been filled, the nursing posts have been filled using a small number of agency staff, but mostly with substantive posts. The difficulty resides with 1 consultant post and 5 middle grades, and these people are very difficult to recruit nationally. I'm told that there is 1 consultant post likely to be taking up a position, but it won't be until after Christmas. He's a very important gentleman, because he also has a position with the World Health Organization. The 5 middle grades have been recruited from overseas, who are still needed to make up a total of 10. So 5 have been recruited and 5 more are currently working overseas, who will need considerable retraining in order to understand how the NHS works, and also to be self-isolating on their journey to the UK. So the latest update I can give you is that the earliest that this will reopen is going to be the beginning of next year, possibly January or February. So I just thought that you ought to be aware of that. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Does there anyone want to come back with any further comments or questions? I'm conscious of the fact that this is a very important item that relates to every single person residing in and around the borough of Chorley, and for the sake of transparency, whilst Councillor Wilson has not taken the opportunity to read the notice of motion out, I think given that it is being recorded and will go out to the public, it might be useful if that were to happen, just so that whilst the debate's been really useful and informative, the wording is quite important to get out there, and I'm not sure that it would reach as many people in a press release as it might if it was verbalised now. It's entirely up to you, Councillor Wilson.
In the interests of ensuring the mayor is satisfied, I will read it out. Always want to make sure you're satisfied. Yeah, but you make a fair point, Mr. Mayor. It's not normally where we can just publish it and people can read. So the motion reads as follows. Chorley Council notes with great disappointment the failure of Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust to reopen Chorley Accident and Emergency Department by their expected target date of the 28th of September. The council expresses grave concern that the trust only intend to review the position on the 3rd of December. The council reaffirms its strong belief that residents of the borough deserve an A&E facility at Chorley and South Ribble Hospital and supports the work of local MPs Lindsay Hoyle, Catherine Fletcher and Nigel Evans in their lobbying of ministers and senior health officials to bring about the reopening of our A&E departments as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Wilson. Have you anything else to add or not? No,
I think, Mr. Mayor, I think people's silence perhaps is that everyone approves it, and we just need to, make our views known clearly.
Yeah. Okay. Given that seems to be the end of the debate, I shall ask if anybody disagrees with this notice of motion. If you do, speak now. If you do not, then I will take it that you approve it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Approved. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Moving on to the next item. It's a part 2 item, so I'll need to go back to my original agenda. And it is item 12, which is the exclusion of the press and public. Can we, through ICT, please break the link and ensure that members, sorry. I propose that we exclude press and public members. Does anyone disagree?
Mr. Mayor, I think you'll find, Mr. Mayor, I propose that we exclude press and public. Then Councillor Wilson seconds it, but I wouldn't presume to step on your toes.
No, it's okay. I can go off beat sometimes.
Give over.